Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alexandria, and today we are going to be getting into the gear that I will consistently bring, especially on cold or winter camping trips after 8 years of building experience in the American West and now in Colorado, which in some ways feels like the ultimate proving grounds in the lower 48. The gear that I'm going to be sharing today is not necessarily the flashiest, the most expensive, or the most intriguing or trendy, but it is gear that I actually use and trust. This is not a buy everything list. These are just items that I reach for consistently, trip and trip again, and pieces that I would go back and tell myself to buy if I was just starting out. Now, the first piece of gear I'll be talking about today is this silk bag liner. It works really well with mummy or quilt systems, which I alternate between in the winter depending on the conditions. It also will keep your sleeping bag or quilt a lot cleaner, which I don't know if you guys have ever seen sleeping bag cleaning videos in someone's bathtub, but that brown water is coming from somewhere. And I personally would much rather wash this silk liner than my entire sleeping bag every year if I don't have to. In mummy bag mode, this will help reduce cold spots and drafts, and in quilt mode, which is my personal preference year round, this is going to stop up any of those gaps where you might be getting air underneath your quilt, in between your sleeping bag. Those drafts from the cold ground through your tent, which we'll talk about in a minute, are going to be nearly eliminated with a silk bag liner. While we're on the topic of drafts and sleeping, I wanted to go ahead and talk about a dual system that I use, and that is a foil closed cell foam pad and a high R value inflatable sleeping pad. Now, the brand doesn't necessarily matter, although I would try to check, especially on your inflatable pad, that you are getting a higher R value, which essentially reflects the amount of insulation that you are getting from the ground, from the elements, from the cold. This closed cell foam pad, I don't believe I've ever seen one above like a 0.5 or maybe a 1. It's not going to be enough on its own, but when you combine it with an inflatable sleeping pad, I personally, especially when I'm sleeping on top of snow, have noticed a massive difference in the transfer of thermal heat and the heat loss through the bottom of this sleeping pad compared to when I just use this alone. These inflatable sleeping pads, especially with higher R value, this is the Zoom UL, it's my ultralight sleeping pad that I use year round from Big Agnes, I think was $200. Not cheap, an investment for sure. And so what do I want to do with that investment? I want to protect it. And these closed cell foam pads are great at dramatically reducing your risk for punctures. So if nothing else, even if it's a warm day, I'd consider getting something that you can put down as a base layer underneath this inflatable pad to protect that investment. All right, next up, we are going to get into a topic area that I feel can be neglected in some of these gear videos, and that is actually what you are putting on your body. The best way to stay warm is 1, to stay dry, and 2, to retain the body heat that you are generating yourself, as opposed to trying to generate or get that from another alternative source, which typically does not exist in the winter. The first thing folks think about is having a big puffy down jacket. Instead, today I'm going to be talking about layering, and the first recommendation I have here is to have a mid layer. I'm in Colorado, so I think it's going to be pretty obvious what I choose. I have a Melanzana microgrid fleece. This is a synthetic material. It is not wool. My base layers are wool. My top is down. My mid layer is a synthetic polyester, because if my other layers get wet, if I get wet, wool is kind of the exception to this. This synthetic is going to insulate you better than almost anything else out there on the market. This guy is a little bit oversized for me, so I can put layers like my wool down under it. I can also put things on top of it, which again, we'll get into in a few minutes with how I layer and actually size my clothing. I also have a hood on this guy, so I can pull it over my head and cinch it down. I believe Mountain Hardwear makes something similar if you're not in Colorado and unable to get your hands on a Melly. And then I also ended up getting this little scrap beanie from them, which we love sustainability and reusing, but we also love staying warm. And this guy is not that attractive, but it does the trick. It keeps my head warm and adds an extra layer for underneath this hood, which I then will pop my down hoodie on top of. In addition, I am not a huge fan of carrying extra clothing, so polyester or synthetic materials in this application are really great to stay breathable and keep you warm while you're out being active. So if you're on a day hike, you're snowshoeing, you're backcountry skiing, this type of synthetic mid layer is going to be your best bet. A few moments ago, you guys heard me say hard shell down, a lot of other big terms. If you don't know what that is, let me explain it for you, because it's the next piece of gear I'm going to recommend that you invest or don't in. If you want to invest, if you have the funds, or if you find a great deal at a local gear store or outlet, I cannot recommend a fully waterproof hard shell enough. The reason is not to look cool. It's sometimes for wind, especially in places like Colorado where we get a lot of it, but it's mostly to keep you dry. You need something that is fully waterproof, weatherproof, wind resistant, because if not, if you get wet through this layer, that means your down is now wet, which does a terrible job at insulating you. And it means that that water could potentially get to that mid layer we were talking about, or even down to your wool. And once you lose that warmth in your core, it's really difficult when it's cold outside to get that back. Now, again, I know these can be expensive, so I'm not saying you need to go out to your local Patagonia or Arc'teryx and buy this really high-end piece of gear. As someone who's out there all the time and wants to purchase once, I did. But what I had before this, and what I recommend to most folks who are just looking to get into it, or are in that shoulder season where you're not sure it's actually going to rain or snow, but you want to be prepared just in case, is a brand called Frogg Toggs. This was purchased at my local Walmart because yes, you can get some of your outdoor gear from Walmart, and I will not knock or judge you for it. This pack actually contains both a pant and a top. My only qualm with it is that it's black, which is not great for visibility, especially in the winter when you want to potentially make yourself visible in case of search and rescue attempts. But these guys are extremely comfortable, very stretchy, so again, you can layer underneath these, and are 100% waterproof. I think individually the top was $25, the bottoms were maybe $30, so for under $60, I have a fully waterproof rain suit that I will bring with me even in the summers out here in Colorado. Last but not least, in the clothing and apparel section is a two-parter. The first recommendation here is to get yourself a pair of fleece-lined gloves. These guys are from North Face. I think they were $30. Any brand works. I really like these guys because they have the e-tip that actually works. So if I'm using my SOS device, my phone, my camera to take photos or videos, I'm able to use them without ever removing my gloves, which has become a really big deal for me as someone who does use maybe more technology than the average person when outside. But these alone are not going to keep you dry. Water is still going to get right through these. They're not waterproof. They're not even water resistant. So the next thing you're going to do is pair them with a pair of work gloves. These are Hestra, but they model a lot of the Kinko or other small off-brand gloves that you can find at your local Ace Hardware, Murdoch's, Tractor Supply Co. Usually gloves made for working that are made of real leather, so they have that natural water repellent or resistance, can be further waterproofed, so I would definitely recommend doing that before you take them out. But they also have an extra layer of insulation and durability that something like a little fleece liner is not going to have. On the coldest nights, hot tip, literally put a hand warmer in between these two layers. So pop on the fleece liner, put one of those hand warmers activated in the palm of your hand, especially if you're going to sleep and not using your gloves, and then put these guys on top, and you will have effectively a hot leather water-resistant sandwich for your hands. But before we jump into the next section, I want to take a quick moment to address technology. I am someone who uses it when I'm outside, whether I'm filming, on my phone, powering string lights, or at the car but tent camping and wanting to have something like a fridge or other small appliances with me. And to power all of that, I want to take a quick moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Bluetti, who I would highly recommend for winter camping adventures when you're at or near your vehicle, because not only is it going to allow you to prepare for your trip by charging up all those devices, but the lithium-ion battery is cold resistant. So it's going to work better than any other type of like flooded acid or gel acid battery that you might be packing alternatively. Now, if you followed my channel for a while, you would know that I'm always bouncing between car camping trips, truck camping and van life, outdoor adventures, and the occasional DIY project that should probably only take an hour but somehow always ends up taking weeks. The one thing that these adventures all have in common though, my need for power, usually in less than ideal circumstances or locations. And while I have tried and loved many a power station, this past month, I got to try out the all-new Bluetti Elite 400, and I can't wait to not only show you guys, but to feel the power at home and how it's about to transform my outdoor adventures, DIY projects, and emergency backup for home this winter. Now, I consider myself to be a fairly strong person, but if you're mid to small size like myself, the idea of carrying around 3,800 watt hours of power can be a little bit intimidating. Like, sure, that's great, But how am I supposed to move it? But lucky for you and me, this power station is built like a suitcase, which means you've got gliding wheels, a telescopic handle, and side grips. So that way you can easily roll power across your backyard, into your car, or down trail to camp without any drama or back strain. Its massive 3,800 watt hours of battery capacity, paired with 2,600 watts of output and up to 3,900 watts of lifting power for heavier loads, means that on camping trips, I can run my entire cook setup, charge camera batteries, heat water, power lights, and more, all at once, even during the coldest of nights. And at home, it's strong enough to run everything from a heater to power tools when I'm working on projects, which is going to be awesome this winter when I'm up here in the attic, which is unheated and uncooled, unfortunately, in the summers, and normally leaves me either sweating or bundled up to the point of not being able to work at all. Now, let's be real. I don't always prep and plan for my trips, which means a lot of times I'm left scrambling all of my gear together last minute. So the fact that the Elite 400 charges from 0 to 80% in just 70 minutes using both AC and solar input is huge. This fast charging capability means that I can get home from a trip or from the store, plug it in, make dinner, and it's basically ready to go by the time I start packing the car for our next trip. And during that occasional power outage, having the dual charging option, meaning I can either plug it into the wall or I can plug it into solar, means that no matter where I am, I can always bring along my Bluetti solar panel to make sure that we get a charge when the grid is down. But something I had no idea I would fall in love with is its 15 millisecond UPS switching time, which means that when the power cuts out, when you're plugged into your Bluetti, there is less than 15 milliseconds between the time that your power cuts off and the Bluetti kicks in, meaning that your Wi-Fi, your fridge, your cameras, and any other equipment that you have running at home, especially medical devices like CPAPs, which I have family members using, so I think of that first, will stay up and running as if your power never cut at all. All of this and the Elite 400 has insane power management capabilities using only 3 watts in standby mode when idle. And last, but certainly not least, a feature that I've loved in all of my Bluetti power stations, but especially in stations that are on the larger side where you're not going to be bringing them out to your tent or up into your rooftop tent like I'm currently in the car, is the ability to monitor, charge, turn on, and turn off your Bluetti power station using the Bluetti app. So whether you're a camper, a traveler, a weekend DIYer, or warrior like myself these days, the Elite 400 hits a sweet spot between big power and a small footprint. It's the kind of gear you really only have to invest in once. And to learn more about the Bluetti Elite 400 or any of their other portable power solutions, you can head down to the link in the description down below to learn more and snag yours today. And thank you again to Bluetti for not only powering this video, but all of our adventures on the road as well. Okay, 4 more pieces of gear, and I promise you guys are gonna want to stay till the end to hear my hot take on what type of tent you should be bringing into the outdoors, especially as someone who has previously identified as an ultralight backpacker. Before we touch on that though, I want to cover headlamps because they usually run off of batteries. I've had ones in the past that I will not be covering today. They're great, they're backup, especially when you're going out by yourself. I will tend to bring 2, both one that is powered by triple or AA batteries, and now, most recently, an ultralight USB rechargeable lithium-ion powered battery. For the same reasons that I was just mentioning, Bluetti is a standout. This is not only super easy to use, it's from Nitecore. It still has the adjustable arm that we all know and love from some of the other brands like Petzl or Black Diamond, but it is ultralight. You're able to cinch this down over the top of any hood or layer that you might have on your head. It's extremely comfortable, and it's easy to recharge and keep charged overnight as long as you put it somewhere warmer like your sleeping bag or your jacket. Now, this is not sponsored by Nitecore, but I do really love their headlamp. It seems to be a leader in durability and ease of use. There is a small indicator light on the front here so you can easily see what your battery capacity is at and make sure that you recharge it before it dies overnight, potentially leaving you fully in the dark by 4:30. And a last tip here, I again am going to recommend that you invest once and have something for a lifetime potentially. Obviously, technology is not made to necessarily last 60 years, but this guy has outlasted and outperformed in durability more so than any other brand or battery type that I have used and tested. And so in terms of sustainability, this is going to be a better bet for your wallet and for the planet. Next up, we're going to talk walking or hiking through the snow. If you're looking to do a backpacking trip especially, or a backcountry hut or ski trip, this is going to be something that you will almost guaranteed need. Now in the past, I've used a pole like this. I love its cord grip, it's ultralight carbon fiber, it has a hand hook here, a small snow basket, and it collapses. I will still use this for split boarding because I don't actually keep my poles extended, unlike skiers who, in that case, I would recommend a fully extended non-collapsing pole. But the other reason that I would not necessarily recommend this exact setup for winter camping is because of the basket size. And I'm gonna go ahead and cut away so I can better show you the difference. But this pole, compared to, say, a fully extended ski pole, is incredible. The surface area of the two basket types makes a huge difference when it comes to actually staying on top of the snow versus sinking in. All right, now I went back and forth between which of these should be last because actually they're both kind of hot takes. I'm someone who has always identified, since finding out about the term a few years ago, as more of an ultralight backpacker. I carry what I need, maybe one or two luxury items, but typically like to just focus on the experience over carrying more weight and having a backache and sweat running down at the end of the day. And both of these pieces of gear go against that principle, but I guess we'll start with the tint. So I'm going to say that this advice applies no matter where you're camping, whether it's out west, in Colorado, the Southwest, etc., because humidity in the winter is a problem, and that is to get a double-walled tint. Now, we already talked about the reduction of condensation being the primary benefit for a double wall versus a single wall tent, and I'm going to stand by that still being the main point. But the additional benefit is that you're actually creating a warm air pocket between the two layers of tent. So now not only are you protected from the ground with your double sleeping pad, you are also going to be warmer with your silk bag liner, warm with your mummy bag or quilt, and creating an additional air pocket within your tent that is going to effectively dome you and protect you from the elements. And last, but certainly not least, is something that I am preparing myself already to get some hate comments for, because I myself would have kind of scoffed at this a few years ago, and that is to bring an inflatable pillow. Now I know what you're thinking. Just roll up your clothes. Just put your extra XYZ underneath your head. And fine, you can do that if you would like. But my recommendation is not only technical, but also based on your comfort. I'm a firm believer that camping should not be painfully difficult. And in the past, I would have just rolled up an extra pair of clothes and put them under my head. But two things changed. One, I stopped carrying a lot of extra clothes and realized that I could actually use them as gear to keep me warm at night, which meant that I usually didn't have any clothes to use as a pillow. Two is, especially inside of a mummy bag where I have protection that can go all the way around the pillow and my head, this air gap is going to insulate me even more, which will keep my head, one of the coldest parts and most exposed parts of my body, that much warmer. And third, camping doesn't have to be miserable. This might be a luxury item to most. It definitely would have been to me a few years ago when, again, I didn't believe you actually needed to bring this with you to have a good time. But having now used one for over a year, it is something that I almost never leave home without, because it increases my comfort and the enjoyment of my trip and the depth of my sleep, which is crucial, for me at least, to having a good time tenfold. All of the gear that I mentioned today, with the exception of the Bluetti Power Station, was completely unsponsored. I paid for it all by myself. I use and trust this gear trip after trip, which is why I'm here recommending it to you today. That, however, does not mean that you need to go out and buy the gear that I recommended or buy the highest end gear. There are certainly alternatives that you can find elsewhere. They just might not be as durable or last as long. So keep that in mind when you're comparing price versus length of use over its lifetime. If you're new here, I want to say thank you so much for joining. I'm really excited about this new style of videos to talk more about the gear that actually gets me out on those adventures, and to take you guys along on some winter trips in the next few weeks here as well. So if you want to see more videos like this or more winter and outdoor adventure content, make sure to like this video and hit subscribe to stay up to date with all of our adventures to come. And I'll see you all in the next one.